Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Rangers Review Morning Briefing. It is Wednesday, the 26th of June. I'm Derek Clark, and I'm joined for the first time in a long time by Joshua Barry. How's it going, Joshua?
Yeah, going good. Good to be back. Missed talking to you in the mornings, Derek. So I'm happy to be back home after being at the Euros for a little while. Still being keeping up to date with the day-to-day madness of Rangers, which hasn't quietened down in the couple of weeks I've been away, and today is no exception in that. So looking forward to getting into the latest, I guess, the latest smoke without fire, or kind of whatever situation you'd call it, coming out of Ibrox.
Yeah, before we get stuck in, how was your venture over to Germany?
It was good, yeah. It's the first time I've been to a major tournament abroad. I know you were there as well and enjoyed yourself thoroughly. So it was good. I mean, the football, this is obviously isn't a Scotland podcast, but the football was not very inspiring, especially in the last game. But it's, yeah, nice to be back home, watch a little bit of it, because you didn't actually see that much of the games outside of Scotland out of there. And yeah, but really enjoyed it, and I know you were there as well, and I'm sure anyone that was over in Germany will tell you, fantastic atmosphere created by all the different fans. Really a good big tournament experience. Just a shame that Scotland's campaign went as it did. Really.
Yeah. It's just a shame you had to sit through the Scotland games, but that aside, it was good. I can think many can echo that. But yeah, good to be back talking about all things Rangers. Just a quick word for our podcast sponsors, MPH Boilers. The all-important link is in the description below, folks. Do go and check them out if your boiler is on the blink or you're thinking about getting a new one installed. Right, let's talk Rangers. Big news to emerge yesterday was a report suggesting that Jack Butland would be taking over from James Tavernier as Rangers captain. Now, there's a bit of nuance to that story. I did hear that last week, murmurings that Butland would become the new Rangers skipper. It is dependent, of course, on the likelihood that James Tavernier would be departing the club. He is still a Rangers player as it stands. And what do you make of this news, Joshua? I think most supporters feel that James Tavernier has come to the end of his Rangers road. I do believe that he will be moving on. The Saudi speculation will not go away if he does move on. I think it's only natural that Jack Butland would be certainly up there in the conversation to become the new Rangers captain. So I've got to say I would be quite content with him taking over the armband next season. What do you make of it all?
Yeah, I mean, another example of if you looked at Rangers summer back in June, and you just said you just need continuity off the park and a settled situation. So the fact that your CEO's gone and you're not playing in your stadium for the first month of the season is not the greatest of starts. But we knew and know that there is going to be a lot of change, Derek. I think if you compare it to last summer with Michael Beale, when it was kind of an example of, yes, there was a lot of change within the squad, but that core of players was still there. James Tavernier, obviously, still the captain. Player like Ryan Jack was kept on for another season. It wasn't quite the radical change that I think we will now see under Philippe Clement. It's clear that there has got to be a break in a number of things, and this has to be a line in the sand. The difficulty is that when Rangers have made these managerial appointments in the last couple of seasons, Gio was it was still continuing the work under Gerrard, and the squad wasn't in as bad a situation then. And Beale, I think, while still making a lot of change, was still trying to use the core of the squad that had been built a long time ago. You're right to say that a situation like this probably depends a lot on what happens, because is Jack Butland's future totally secure? What if a bid comes in for him that Rangers can't refuse? You're right in saying that the interest in Tavernier won't go away, and there's a reason for that. I think the situation snowballed very quickly in the last couple of months in the season. If you look back to when Derek scored that goal against Hibs, which I believe made in the UK's records defensive goal scorer around about March time, it felt as if he had a new lease of life under Clement. We'd seen this before where he dipped for a few months, but then again, his numbers, especially in the final third, had improved. The last couple of months of the season felt so damaging for a lot of aspects. And I'm sure Clement, and he kind of reiterated this in press conferences as well, didn't he? I think he'll have learned a lot of lessons from the last couple of months, because make no mistake, he won't be sentimental if he believes that a decision like this has to be made. then I think he will do for the success of the club and ultimately his success as well. So it's definitely one that there's been contrasting noises about it, as you say. Is that going to be announced officially at the moment? No. It all has to do with exactly what happens regarding James Tavernier's future. If Rangers could get a good fee for Tavernier and then obviously keep Butland on, depending on where else they can get money in, then of course, if Tavernier goes, who is your natural captain? I actually don't think there's many contenders outside of that. They're clearly not going to make Connor Goldson the next captain. He lost his place towards the end of last season, still has 2 years in the deal. But
and you'll probably move on.
Yeah, exactly, in a very similar situation. So
Yeah.
I think it's another example, Derek, of the amount of change that is happening and has happened. Fully expect there to be more incomings this summer than there was last summer at Rangers. And if this was to be the case, then I think this would be the biggest signal of it and a really big move from Philippe Clement. But ultimately, got to wait and see exactly when and what if happens. And I think that depends on the two players' futures as well.
Yeah, a few comments saying, is it just rumours? Why is nothing coming out officially from the club? Well, James Tavernier is a Rangers player at this moment in time. I can understand why the club aren't commenting on that just now. Incidentally, the Saudi transfer window opens up on the 1st of July. So, of course, both Tav and Goldson have been linked with moves to the Middle East, but both won't be leaving there until July 1st at the earliest anyway, should they move on. But yeah, certainly as a discussion, I think we've discussed it before. If Tavernier is to go, who is the captain that will take over? I think we mentioned a few names previously. Butland was certainly one of them. I know that Dujon Sterling got a few nominations from people tuning in, and John Suter as well. But Butland, of the players that are in the squad at this moment in time, certainly would be my pick. Now, there is a host of comments coming in about being a goalkeeper being your captain. John Adams with the point says, making a goalkeeper captain in the modern day rules is tactically inept. And Kenny with the point, how's Butland going to approach the ref in the opposition penalty box if only the captain can speak to them? Not practical. Blazing Blue says an outfield player can be nominated to talk to the ref too. I'd have to read the rules on this. I know it's a situation at the Euros where the captain is the only player that can approach the referee in game. Listen, there's been a host of great captains down the years that have been goalkeepers, so I've got no real problem if Jack Butland takes the armband. Joshua, is that an issue for you? Would you rather see an outfield player take over?
Yeah, I mean, it probably is important to state first that, as you say, at the moment, people have been keen to push this down and say that even if that conversation were to happen in Tavernier and Butland, it hasn't happened yet. So one of these ones where you probably depends on who you believe. There's clearly, as we've just talked about for a few minutes, a lot of change going to be happening this summer. And I think it is widely known that it might be the right time from both parties, if you look at Tavernier and Goldson, for that transfer to happen. I don't think it's tactically inept. I mean, it depends what you think a captain is. And at a club like Rangers, it probably matters more to James Tavernier's always faced that criticism, I think, quite often unfairly, because he's led by his actions. And there's that whole debate of, okay, you can sound brilliant in a press conference, but can you perform as well? Now, Butland has the added bonus of being able to do both. I mean, he really is, if you listen to his press conference or interview, he knows how to communicate. Clearly won the hearts of the fans very quickly. I don't know about you, but I don't see that being an issue. I think you need leaders outfield. Someone like Mohamed Diamande is not the most vocal leader, but if you speak to people about him who know him, who've worked with him, who watch him play, he's someone who really leads by his actions and can be effectively a quiet leader on the pitch all around world football at the moment. You see it with England at the Euros, not going fantastically well, but they've got a leadership group with different ages of profiles. I think Jude Bellingham's in there, predictably, Harry Kane, a couple others, to try and, I guess, hit all the marks of the different age ranges in the squad. So it doesn't need to be as black and white for that as me. The most important role, I think, of a captain, almost, yes, it's important in the dressing room. Jack Butland will and was leading in the dressing room last season already. It's probably more about how it looks to the outside world, how when you go into the first Old Firm game of the season, who is the one speaking at the press conference, etc., etc. These are all things that matter in terms of getting supporters on side. Sometimes to signal a new era, you do have to make big decisions and make a break in the fold to some description. But I don't know about you. I don't see it being an issue if you're goalkeepers are. I mean, I don't think the captain's making huge tactical sweeping changes in a game anyway, but correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, listen, Rangers should have a number of leaders in that first team anyway, no matter who has the armband on their arm. I don't think that should be the guy that is the bona fide captain. I think that Rangers should have lieutenants elsewhere in the pitch, as my dog just goes barking crazy upstairs. But anyway, we'll move on. Just on the issue of Butland, say he does get the captaincy, Joshua. There's been a lot of noise, of course. I remember a few weeks ago when we're thinking, does Butland move on and fund what is a major rebuild at Rangers? We know that the Nottingham Forest field in an approach in the winter transfer window. There was a likelihood we did all think that a team from down south or teams may look to prize him away from Ibrox this summer. Could handing him the armband entice him to stay, perhaps? Or what's your view on Butland? Can you see him? What's your feeling of him being the number one next season?
I don't think it's a situation of enticing him, because clearly I think he's someone who very visibly has had his career has been revitalised. He's taken to the fans have taken to him. I don't think it's a situation where you need to convince him how to stay. I think it's more of a situation that Rangers, to become a player trading club, Rangers need to trade players at the right time. And I think the only time they've really done that, probably the only 2 times they've done that, is with Nathan Patterson. And that kind of worked because James Tavernier was already the first choice and a new manager had come in by that point. And Calvin Bassey, who they sold at just the right time because his value would have undoubtedly decreased had he stayed on for another season, not least because of how poor Rangers became in that season after he left. So it's not a situation necessarily where it's about Butland pining to get back to the Premier League. He'll still look at his career and think he has a number of seasons to go. He might look at the England question and think, is it only if I get down to the Premier League that I'm going to play, because he was in such good form for Rangers and still didn't get a call up? But then equally, maybe it's about his age, and Southgate is just going to turn to younger people to playing goals for England. It's similar, I think, to the Ridvan situation. Rangers are not planning on selling him. Every player has to have a value, though, because one of the reasons that Rangers have got into this situation with their squad is that they've kind of been stubborn about selling players at certain times. And you can understand that. Morelos, before winning the title, is the obvious example, because a club like Rangers, that title supersedes sensible business decisions. That's just the reality of football in Glasgow. We heard Clement very publicly say that when he was looking to next season, one player he could not lose was Jack Butland, which I think was interesting because he's not one to put pressure that publicly that often. But again, if a bid was to come in of 15 million or maybe a little bit less, how do you square that? Because the plan was obviously always, it's not anything special by saying this, but clearly if you bring a player who is that age, who has the English homegrown rules, who has a good profile, if you bring him up to Glasgow, if you're able to get him back playing football, the plan always long-term is to sell. I think the best situation, probably for most people being realistic, would say it's important to keep that leadership in the dressing room for another year. And hopefully then next summer you can still make a really good profit on Jack Butland, because there's so much change going on at the moment, Derek, that I do think it's important to have some sense of continuity, especially over August, because this is the important point to stress. And this is why the playing away from Ibrox is so important. We saw what happened last August. Rangers went out of the Champions League in emphatic fashion. They lost the first Old Firm of the season at home. They lost the opening game of the season. I think it was 3 games in their opening 7 or 8 league games they lost. By that point, you're just hugely playing catch up, and they cannot afford to have that this season if they want their season to be different.
Yeah. Listen, I like the majority of supporters, I think, pleased if Jack Butland is a Rangers player next season. But every player has their price, and at this moment in time, no mega money offer has approached the Rangers board. I wanted to address this. We'll move on, and this from Headkeeper that emerged yesterday from the Aberdeen side. He says, what's the story on Aberdeen wanting more money for Barron? Thought the deal was done. This is Connor Barron, who joined last week. He was a free agent, but despite that, due to the length of time that he spent in the Aberdeen Academy setup, they are owed compensation over the move. It's believed that Rangers have made a £500,000 offer to settle the deal, but Aberdeen say That is nowhere near what they are seeking now. Their CEO, Alan Burrows, was speaking yesterday after they unveiled their new manager. He says, what happens in this situation is both clubs are effectively mandated to try to find a solution before some kind of arbitrary body like the SPFL would step in and set that value. Both clubs have to try to make counter proposals to each other. If they can't agree on a middle point, then it goes to the SPFL. That's a part of the process. It's ongoing at the moment. If there isn't agreement between the two clubs, then we are fully prepared to go to a tribunal. It is our job to get the best value for any player, and we'll try and do that with Connor Barron. Ideally, in all walks of life, we'd like to avoid situations where you have to go to independent tribunals, but we'll have to, if we have to, we will. We've had experience of these tribunals before. Lewis Ferguson arrived from Hamilton Accies via an SPFL tribunal, so we've got good experience in this situation, and if we have to utilise that again, then we will. So, Aberdeen holding out for more cash for Connor Barron. It's something that is getting negotiated at this moment in time. You were off when he signed last week, Joshua. Happy with the signing?
Yeah, I mean, I can't say I've watched tons and tons of him, but it looks to make sense because he's from what I have seen, he's a good player, looks like a good profile of midfielder. He's 21, ticks a homegrown box, one of the standout Scottish talents, and believe that is something that Rangers are going to try and hit every season going forward, which is signing one of, if not the standout Scottish talent. That's something that has been a criticism of their transfer model over the past number of years, that they have not done that while a number of players have gone to Italy, and I know that Connor Barron did have that interest as well, so it's quite a contrast to maybe the last few seasons. Rangers need to be smart in this transfer window, don't they? They need to make signings at the right time. You've seen that with 5 people coming in already. There was some murmurings back before the transfer window opened that would the incomings be dependent on the outgoings first and foremost, and certainly in the short term that's been seen not to be the case. But it looks just like a sensible transfer to me. Do I think he's going to play 40-50 games next season? Probably not. But you've seen from, again, just the small amount of games that I've seen him play, he is someone who's comfortable in a possession team. Lost his place in the Aberdeen midfield for a period of time, but I don't know if that was more to do with maybe the style of football than anything else. And he was obviously reinstated towards the end of the season. So a transfer that makes sense, Derek, and obviously the fact that he ticks that homegrown quota is really important, because obviously we know what happened last season when Rangers didn't hit that exactly, and how that impacted the changes that Philippe Clement could ultimately make in the Europa League squad heading into that game against Benfica.
Yeah. I want to keep an eye on, folks. That it looks like it may go to a tribunal. Rangers offering around £500,000. Aberdeen not happy with that for some reason, but there you go. Another bit of news yesterday. We touched on it when I was on with Stevie and Chris. Is Cyril Dessers. Now, Mark with a point here. He says, how much truth is there in Dessers moving on? This is reports from Greece suggesting that PAOK are looking to sign Cyril. Discussions said to be at an advanced stage, and it's just working at the financials with Rangers and a transfer fee. Now, there's no doubt about it. Rangers, for me, perhaps overspent in bringing him from Cremonese last summer. That's not to say he never contributed. 22 goals last season is a decent return. However, we all know his limitations. And I think, Joshua, if Rangers can get anywhere near, or if they can recoup their transfer fee that they spent last summer for him, I think we just shake his hand and we wish him all the best in Greece.
Yeah, probably. Believe there is interest. And I think, Derek, it's a situation whereby, again, it depends. It's like the Lammers situation. The Rangers spent a lot of money on those 2 players, and neither of them next season are going to be your first choice player who, even though we saw Lammers score all those goals in the Eredivisie, again, it's the optics around it. If he comes back and has one bad game at Rangers, I don't think you can afford that. You want to sell him when the time is right, while you can still get a bit more back for your fee and then reinvest it. That's a perfect example of how Rangers should be smart this summer. Dessers scored 22 goals. He's also just turned 29, I think, Derek. Is that right?
He is 29.
I think he's 29.
His birthday was, the 8th of December, so he'll be 30 this year.
Right, okay. I mean, if you were able, we're still trying to establish exactly what that fee would be. If you were able to get a generous proportion of the fee that you paid out, I think it's a no-brainer. Dessers is better is more effective than a lot of people have given him credit for. I think he's a perfect example of, because aesthetically he's not the best striker, that can work against him. Equally, he has his faults, and it tells you everything that when Clement had Danilo and Dessers both available, who was the striker that he played? Danilo. Now Danilo's come back from a long-term injury. We know the interest in a certain other striker whose arrival will be imminent. If you can get money back, if you can get a good proportion back of what you spent on Lammers and Dessers, which was a lot, in relation to the type of money that Rangers normally spend in the transfer window, it's probably a no-brainer for me. Dessers has also played for a lot of clubs. He's used to moving about. If you look at the track record of clubs that he's played for. So what one to keep an eye on, my point of view on that would definitely be, if the timing is right, it might be another example of shake hands, 22 goals in the season. He came back from a really difficult circumstance, but is he going to be Rangers out and out number 9 next season, whether he's here or not? No. If you can get a good amount of money back from him, then I think it would make sense.
The comment that came in, Blue Whales are Blue, says money needs to be right for Dessers. There's no point just getting shot of him on the cheap. Can't see Park having the money we should be looking for. Well, they did win the Greek League last season, so they will be, I think they go straight into the Champions League, if I'm not mistaken. They might have a qualifier, not entirely sure. But yeah, listen, if they've got the cash, then pee up, lads, and we'll wish Cyril all the best in his future endeavours. It does like a signing on fee, Cyril Dessers, like you say, Joshua. He does move on from time to time. So listen, I think he contributed last season. Big, honest lad. I think you're a very likeable fella as well. Just unfortunately on the pitch, Rangers for me just need a lot more quality up top. Now we know that Danilo's back in training. Good to see the pre-season images of him back doing his stuff. He will be one of the forwards for Rangers next season. I think, Joshua, for me, they still need another 2 strikers for you if you get Hamza Igaman coming in and then one more.
Yeah, probably. Danilo, we only played 5 games in the Premiership overall. I know he missed a few chances in the Dundee game, and then I think it was away at Hearts. I think it always remains to be seen how a player is going to recover from an injury. And unlike Cortez was recovering from a muscle injury, and I guess the worry from that when you've had surgery to do with your hamstring, the worry is how does that impact you long term, and remains to be seen. But Rangers are obviously confident enough that is not going to be the case, and it's not going to impact his career at Rangers. When it's been a knee injury like Danilo, probably takes you a little bit more time to build up sharpness. He has been out for about 6 months. I know he's back training now. He looked like a really exciting player to me. Rangers spent a lot of money on him from Feyenoord. It's going to be almost a little bit cliche to say this, but he will be a bit like a new signing because he was so out of action for almost the entirety of last season. Because he arrived, he didn't play for a while. He scored that goal against St Johnstone and got that horrendous head injury, didn't he?
Yeah.
And then didn't play for another 2 months. And so, yes, he missed some big chances, but I thought generally when he played, he contributed well. To go back to the previous point, when Clement had both options, he played Danilo over Dessers. He's younger as well. I believe he's just turned 25 or 24, 25 at a good age. But you saw towards the end of last season, Rangers did not have nearly enough strength and depth up top. So I agree with you. I think 3 strikers going into the new season. We know that Clement's probably going to play that 4-2-3-1, but it gives you the variation and the depth that you need for a 55, 60 game season, depending on how far Rangers go in all competitions.
Yeah, thanks to Bluebells or Blue Palk are in the second qualifying round for the Champions League. Absolute farce, incidentally, why the champions of Greece have to go through 2 qualifiers to get into the Champions League. It is a nonsense. That's my tuppence worth on that. This is an interesting point, and it ties in with Robbie Fraser was speaking to RTV yesterday. Graham Hall says, do you think any of our youngsters have a chance of becoming first starters this season? Now, Robbie Fraser has recently penned a new 2-year contract extension. Speaking yesterday, he says, Borna leaving was quite sad for me because he worked with me so well. He gave me so much information and gave me a lot of his time and effort. The last picture of this club, and that'll always stick with me. It's a special moment. It's a big, big day for the people that are really close to me, my family, my friends. I take so much pride in being involved with this football club. To extend my stay for a couple more years is a really good feeling. Seeing the way the manager has come in, he's shown added faith in younger players. He gave me the opportunity in the first team. I've got a lot to be thankful for. I can see there are positive strides for me moving forward. I had a really good chat with him just before I made my debut, which, was a real eye-opener that things could happen for me at this club. Thankfully, I did get my opportunity, and I hope to kick on now. If you're willing to work hard enough and every day try to get better, then the manager has proved that he can give you opportunities if you're good enough. So Robbie Fraser signing a new deal. I was speaking to both Chris and Stevie about this yesterday. Joshua, he's got competition, there's no doubt about it, on that left-hand side. I mean, Ridvan doesn't look like he's going anywhere unless Rangers receive an eye-watering bid. And Jefte has come in as well. But what do you make of this and the point coming in there from Graham? Any other youngsters you think that can make the breakthrough this coming season?
I believe that it's viewed that Jefte can also play higher up the pitch as well, Derek, which is something to bear in mind when you're looking at how the minutes will be split up. Fraser waited a long time. He's 21 now, isn't he? So he'd waited a long time to make that breakthrough. What Clement clearly is doing, and again, he's spoken about this publicly, is that to fix the issues, and Rangers are almost working from a standing start here. To fix their squad building issues, so many things need to line up, and one of those is, even when it's not just about taking one academy player who's going to be brilliant, but it's about trying to add depth, it's about trying to hit the homegrown quota and all these different facets with your academy. You saw it with Cole McKinnon as well, and John Lee Efeko was quite involved towards the end of last season. Are any going to assert their place in the first team? I don't know, because Ross McCausland did. Is there going to be further arrivals out wide? You'd expect so between now and the end of the transfer window. What is important though, especially when there's so much change, is Rangers have depth in their squad. I think it's again another move that probably makes sense. We've not seen much from Robbie Fraser to really know is he good enough? Is he going to be the first choice Rangers left back? But he's going to have time to effectively prove that over the next couple of years now. So I think it's a further example of how Clement is trying to fix, and Coppin and all the other people at the top of the club, trying to fix in the short term some squad building issues as well. Another player that hits the homegrown quota, and we'll wait and see how the minutes are shared at left back, because, as you say, Jefte can play higher up, and that's, I believe, been taken into consideration. Ridvan, both parties expect him to stay, but if a move was to come in for him, a bid was to come in for him that Rangers could not turn down, then that would change things. Believe that they think they can solve his hamstring issues, and that the continuity offered in a pre-season that is in the mould of the manager, as opposed to changing managers midway through the season, should help. But with Rangers and injuries, we will wait and see what happens, because I think even the most optimistic of person would not predict anything based on the last couple of years on that front.
Yeah, incidentally, congratulations to Jefte and his good lady. They got married over the weekend. So, I'm sure a good time was had by all. I'm really excited about seeing him in a Rangers jersey. And thank you to Bluebells Are Blue. Incidentally, he's gifted 5 Rangers Review memberships. That is very kind of you for doing it just that. Your generosity knows no bounds. So if you want to take up one of those memberships, folks, please do so. You get 3 to 5 extra videos per week. We did a video over the weekend, myself and Adam, who has written a scout report on Clinton Nsiala. So I'd urge you to go and check that out. We have a weekly Q&A show. I'm back on with Adam tomorrow. And we've also got a special video coming on Hamza Igaman as well. I'm going to speak to a Moroccan football expert to find out what we can expect from the young forward. So something to keep an eye on. Before we go then, Joshua, what have you made of the transfer business so far? I know you've been off focusing on other matters recently, but of the transfer, I think, was it 5 players that have been brought in so far, 4 or 5? What have you made of it all? Oh, can't hear Joshua there on the...
There we go. How's that?
Yay, we're back in business.
Right. Don't know what happened there. One of the conversations that's been happening is there enough experience? And when you're signing a lot of 20-year-olds, 21-year-olds, there's that fear that, okay, again, we've spoken about that time in August. Is there going to be enough experience to get you through that? My pushback to that a little bit is, I think there will be growing pains with the number of young players that Rangers are signing. I believe there's recognition that they do need to match that up with experience, but those type of signings might come later in the window. However, the experience hasn't necessarily carried Rangers where they wanted to get last season or the season before either, has it? And where is the balance between experience and scar tissue? So there has to be a little bit of trepidation. Just as last season, there was a lot of players arriving who were not young players, but had once been kind of like Lammers, had once been really effective young players and lost their way, and now we're coming back to Rangers to find their way. And obviously, it's a difficult club to do that at. So there is an element of that. However, I also, if you look at someone like Cortez or Ridvan, what you need beyond age, I think, at Rangers, Derek, is bravery to play in front of 50,000 people, the ability to make mistakes and not allow it to impact your games, and ultimately just good players. That is what will be judged upon. It is beyond speaking about the profile of players, where they're from, what age they are. It is going to be the quality. If they're a quality player, it will make life at Ibrox a lot easier. So that'll be my take on it so far. They need a bit of experience. There will be growing pains, but also I would always go for some short-term growing pains and success based on the quality of the player, rather than thinking you need to sign 10, 28-year-olds who know what it's like to play Kilmarnock away, but then still aren't able to win there. That would be my take on it so far.
Good stuff. Well, there'll be plenty more arrivals to come in the next few weeks. There's no doubt about it. Right, that'll do us there, folks. Thank you to each and every one of you for tuning into the show as ever. Big thanks to Joshua as well. Over on the website, Chris has got a great piece on Cyril Dessers and his future. The link is in the description below for you to have a read of that. Right, we'll speak to you again tomorrow morning. Until then, enjoy the rest of your Wednesday. Bye.